Hi everyone and welcome. That video I did back in 2012, prior to a lot of the Facebook stuff was not, it just started back then. And a lot of those forums were what we had. There was, at one point, I think we had close to 100,000 members in the community. It was really a great time during that time with all the different blogs. But anyway, I want to welcome you. I also want to apologize to the subs that were with me every Saturday afternoon. For reasons beyond my control, I had to stop doing it. And I've done occasional Maddie lives, but sadly, my equipment was an issue. And even on the last live I did about moving the body, that was an issue. It got stopped in the middle. But Mother's Day proved happy for me, and my daughter sorted me out and got a good video, good laptop for me. So that's why I'm here. Hopefully the internet works okay, which is always when you live out in the sticks, I'm limited. So, but let's hope that's okay. So anyway, I'm really happy to be here. It's an important live for me today because I feel the time right now, especially with the burnt Stellinger, I think that's right, book, people are starting to get really interested in Maddie again. And I do know that there are a few people that really don't know the full details from the start, just kind of taking it in. So I thought what I'd do is do a summary from the start with all the research that I did during the holiday. And then, in addition, add to that my latest conclusions or theories, whatever you want to call them, about where she might move her body, that they might have moved her body. Now, this came to me very recently. It wasn't something I was seeking, but I was looking at some issues, and I was in touch with Kenny Johnson of what really happened to Madeline private forum. For those that, it's a great forum. So is HGH Controversy and Cherry. Anyway, I was talking to him, and I'd suggested to him that I'd like to really research the timeline that I'd come up with. Suddenly, we knew everything individually, but I don't think, as far as I know, that anybody actually put the timeline together. So we had plans on doing that. He'd invited a police friend of his, but unfortunately, it's such a huge project. I would suspect that if I and anybody else was to spend a month totally focused, nothing else, I still don't know that I could actually get the research put together. And of course, I don't have the ability to be able to do that right now. But, you know, I really do hope that we can do it, or somebody can do it, because I really believe in what this timeline is. But anyway, I thought what I'd do is start with what I do know, or I do feel, believe, and that is some of the things that happened during holiday. I did deep research on it. 4 years I put my head down. I didn't do a lot of chatting to everybody. I just used to post my thoughts, the information that I discovered on the forums, and then get back to work. I took apart and reduced all the statements with all the timelines in every statement and put them together in hundreds of tables and timelines, because my thoughts on how to figure out what happened would come not necessarily believing what they said in the statements, but being able to compare and put them in context with what everybody else says. So if somebody, I put them into quarter of an hour tables. So every quarter of an hour, I could see what this witness said, what this witness said, or the T9, and start to compare and see, you know, sometimes there's memory, but other times there's a total, well, you know what I want to say. So anyway, I put all those together and discovered that there was a huge amount of discrepancies that started on the Tuesday morning. Now, when I say discrepancies, like I just said, I don't mean memory. I'm talking about just total, I was there, and the other one is, no, they weren't there. You know, that kind of thing, the definite discrepancies. They started Tuesday morning. And the reason that is important to me is because that tells me there was something they were trying to hide. Now, why in any holiday would they try and start contradicting each other and trying to hide anything? So seeing as it started Tuesday morning, that led me to believe that something had happened to Maddie before that. I've never said that she died before that. I've always been very careful to say that something happened because we just don't know. But I would say definitely something happened before Tuesday morning, because some of the things that were contradicted, you can see a lot of the discrepancies in some of my other videos. I'm not going to go into detail in this video and start to show a lot of graphics or anything like that. I'm working from memory because basically everything that I learned, I retained in my brain, in my memory, and hopefully I can use it today without having to refer to any notes. It is ingrained in my head. It's like I have a movie of what that week, in my perception, with the information that I have been able to obtain from the files, from interviews, and in some cases from news media articles. Now, I know a lot of those you cannot rely on totally, but prior to the police files, which were released in July of 2008, there was a lot of Portuguese papers that really were telling it how it is. And we had Sol, S-O-L, one newspaper, which by the time we got the files, we basically knew what was in them because they explained it to us right the way through and they'd been correct. So a lot of the Portuguese newspapers knew it. Also, some of the British papers, particularly the Express, I have an interview with David Pildage, who said that we weren't told anything. We had to take what was in the Portuguese papers. And so we had to use what they said in our newspapers. We knew there was a problem, but we took the chance because we had no option. And of course, ultimately, they were sued and a lot of their news articles were deleted. But a lot of those news articles have the information that is really quite helpful, especially in research. So that gets me to where I decided. Actually, it was a pro McCann in a Maddie forum who inspired me to actually start to look to see the last time Maddie was seen. It's kind of funny, but I got along with, I call him because They pretended it was a her, but I felt it was a him. And I started to look at what date was the last date she was seen. So initially back in 2008, early 2008, I felt sure it was the Wednesday. I knew that a lot of people go by the Thursday, but in my opinion, just logic tells me that if something like that happened on a holiday, what reason would there be for them to rush it through that night and deal with everything? It's not logical, apart from the fact that in that 3/4 of an hour or something that Jerry had to get everything sorted, boom, boom, boom. No, I just don't believe it. So when you look at it that way, it's probably likely, even by logic, that it happened earlier, and then they figured out what they were going to do, and then they took the Thursday as the so-called abduction. So what I did was try to figure out what day was the last day she was seen. And I did a tremendous amount of research on this, and I can show you everything. I can show you all the witnesses, all the witness comments regarding Maddie, and there is not one. Now I've got, I think, probably, I've never counted them, probably 30, 40 witnesses that have made a comment about seeing Maddie, but not one of them is credible. It doesn't mean she wasn't seen, but there is no proof that she was seen. And that's what's really important to me. What was I going to say? You'll have to forgive me, because sometimes I go off on a thought tangent. But anyway, I took all of the witness statements, I compared them, I wrote them down. You can see the graphic, and you can ask yourself, you can look at it yourself and say, that one looks proof, but there isn't. There were so many different, some only saw her occasionally, some it wasn't specific that it was Maddie. I saw Maddie this day, but how do we know it was Maddie? Now, the thing was, and I'll get into it a little bit in a short while, that Russell O'Brien and James Tanner's daughter was 3 months younger than Maddie and had the similar hair color and looked very similar to Maddie. Now, I've never, and I would never consider that she may have been used for a substitution. That is not the case in the Crèche. But I'll explain to you the light bulb moment I had with that. But anyway, to get back to my first thoughts after compiling all the statements, discovering the discrepancies, and I knew that discrepancies start for a reason. There were a huge amount. And I do want to say that anybody who wants to question me on anything that I say, please do, because I have links to everything. And if you go in Heidi Ho Controversy and ask Cherry, she will either ask me or direct you to the link that proves or shows that whatever I say has been based on fact. I do not look at a possibility and try and prove it. I wait till the files or something tells me, and then I pursue and see whether or not it fits. And yeah, that's happened quite a bit. And I do have to say that even though initially I thought it was a Wednesday, and I've gone back to Tuesday, and I stayed at Tuesday for a long time, that something happened to her, because the tennis coach had claimed to have seen her on the Tuesday. And then when I really looked at her statement, she said Maddie was one of a group. And she may have been looking at her booking sheet But yeah, Maddie may have been there in the sharks, but lobsters. But did she really specifically see Maddie in that half an hour or so where she had these children of 3 years old, 3 and 4 years old? Would she have known all their names and who they were? And was this Maddie? It's questionable. And that's when I realized, hang on, it may not be Tuesday. It may be prior to Tuesday. So for many years, I have believed that something happened after Sunday lunchtime. Now, I know I just said that I didn't see one thing for proof, but I was fibbing. No, what was proof to me was the cleaner's daughter who saw them come out of their room. She saw them with Maddie with a plate and I think some bread. And she described the fact that she had flashing lights on her shoes and that they walked up to an apartment upstairs. And it was the apartment next door to where her mother was cleaning, which is kind of interesting because they were sat on the balcony. I wonder if well, no, they wouldn't, because at that time nothing had happened. So it was very, very credible, and I had no issues with believing that. However, just recently, I'll get into that later. So if anybody wants to see any of the graphics that I put together to prove that I see nothing to say that Maddie was still around. I'm not saying she died. Something happened to her. Don't know what, but she was not out in the public in the Ocean Club. Now, I should say I'm going to go past a lot of maybe important information because I'm just doing this from memory, and it's all on my videos, or you can just ask. So once I discovered that I believed it was between Sunday lunchtime and Tuesday morning, it was then important for me as a researcher to claim, not just to claim that something happened to her and she wasn't seen, but how do they explain the Crèche deceit? How did people see her at Crèche? And this was something which did take me years and years before I had a light bulb moment. And it was an amazing moment. I was posting in Jill Haven's forum, Complete Mystery of Madeleine McCann. And for anybody who wants to really do deep research and wants to know anything, you will not get a better forum than Complete Mystery of Madeleine McCann. It's listed under Jill Haven, who who owns it, but it's got everything, every single. I was given a portion where I uploaded a lot of my stuff, which is was great of Jill, but it's a great forum, as opposed to Facebook groups where you kind of just do threads. This is the best. Now, once I'd decided that it's important to me to justify why the Crèche, how Maddie got how Maddie was seen at the Crèche. It's difficult to kind of put that into context when you know that people have seen her, but they didn't really prove that they'd seen her. So back in 2008, I had checked out the Crèche records, and there was something that triggered me that just didn't seem right. And they were a big mess, the Crèche records. I did do a couple of graphics to try and make them simpler to read. But there was something that stuck out to me then, and I did a post on it at the time, that it seemed that there was one child in and one child out regarding Russell and Maddie, Russell's daughter and Maddie. And I couldn't understand why that would be, but it did seem to be something. So for many, many years, up until, oh golly, I think it was 4 years ago, that I suddenly was writing this in complete mystery. And I had a light bulb moment, because it suddenly occurred to me that if Jerry and Russell were both at the Crèche at the same time. Now, just prior to this, I'd done a Crèche graphic, which included everything. It took me 2 days, and every time I mention it, I complain, because I did it. I took 2 days, and I sat back and I thought, okay, that was a wasted 2 days. But it wasn't, because what it highlighted was that Jerry and Russell. Now, when I say Jerry and Russell, it could have been Jerry and Kate and Russell, or Kate and Jerry, Kate and Russell. It could have been either, but I'm just going to claim it as Jerry and Russell. They seem to appear at the Crèche at the same time. And then I looked at the one in and one out, and one of them had been taken in on the register, and the other one was not acknowledged, but the other one was taken out, and the other child was not. Sometimes Catriona would sign. It was such an odd thing. So then I started to look to see that Jerry and Russell tended, not always, but tended to appear at the Crèche at the same time. And then, now this is where it's important as a researcher to not just know this and know that and know the other and refer to it. It has to stay up here, because what happened, I looked at Wednesday morning, and on the Wednesday morning there was a rain, so there was no tennis match. And I thought it odd that Jerry had dropped off the twins, but it's only basically 10 minutes to drop off Maddie, and they didn't. So I'm thinking, well, why? And then I looked and I thought Russell was there at the same time, that he dropped Maddie off, 20, 30 minutes later. And it usually only took 10 minutes. And I thought, why? And then I thought, hang on. I remembered that Diane Webster, in one line in her statement, had mentioned that she saw the McCanns at the Millennium. Now, they claimed never to go after the first day. So, it kind of stuck with me and a lot of other people, not just me. But I remembered that. And then I thought, hang on. If Russell and Jerry, who were off doing different activities most of the time, always seemed to appear at the Maddie's Crèche at the same time, I thought, okay, if Russell had just come from the Millennium, where he'd had breakfast, and Jerry arrived with him, is it possible that spare time that they didn't drop Maddie off, that 10 minutes, that they walked to the Millennium, picked up Russell and his daughter, they walked back to the Crèche, Russell sent in his daughter. Important to remember, I'm not saying it was a substitute. I'm saying that I believe the possibility that Russell sent in his daughter and Jerry walked in with her. And so all the nannies the following week, when they were interviewed, would say, yes, I saw Jerry with Maddie. Yeah, he dropped her off. But only one signed in and one signed out. You know what I mean? It absolutely fits. And that only came because I'd retained that information about Diane Webster mentioning she'd seen them at the Millennium, even though she said they didn't, I don't think they had breakfast or something like that. So that's where, this is what I'm saying. Things start to fit. I don't search for them. This just happened. So I absolutely believe that that is the case. And when Gonzalo Amaral released his book back in October, a couple of years ago, actually, he did say that it's very possible that something happened to Maddie earlier, but they cannot explain how she was seen at the crèche. And that's what I'm hoping, that they now have an indication as to what may have happened. And I think it was my responsibility to discover something like that. If I'm going to claim that something happened earlier in the week, I need to explain how did they work out the crèche? And it's such a simple plan. I mean, it doesn't take any effort. You just walk along, going together, one signs, sends in Russell's daughter, and Jerry walks in with her, and the nannies just think it's Maddie. Now, also keep in mind, everybody said, well, they'd all know it's Maddie during the week, but if something happened earlier, especially if it happened on the Sunday, even on the Monday, with 14 children in that room, do you think they'd honestly miss one child that didn't show up after that and know the names of all the children? And no, I think most people agree, especially those that put their children in nursery, that the nannies take a while before they start to understand. And this wasn't really a nursery. Always keep in mind, it was a babysitting, basically. And it wasn't specific where they came in and signed them in and signed them out. Well, the parents signed them in and signed them out, but it wasn't a register where who's present, everybody. The children were dropped off at any time and picked up at any time. And they could be somewhere else. They could be in the swimming pool. They could be out on the beach when the parents picked them up. There was nothing specific about it. And in fact, there was a BBC whistleblower report on Mark Warner in, I think, Greece. I can't be sure. And it was really quite eye-opening as to how questionable it was run. I will never say that Catriona or any of the nannies didn't care about what they did, but they certainly were not trained. They only arrived the week before. They really didn't know what they were doing. They were just babysitting, and they probably did or tried to do a good job. I'm sure of that. Again, Catriona, a lot of people put some kind of blame on her. I refuse to do that. I absolutely do not believe that Catriona had anything to do with it or any knowledge initially. And I think that shows in her early statements that she's not overly specific about anything. But then what happened is that, and in fact, on the early statements, oh no, maybe it was the rogatories. Yeah, the rogatories. What happened was in November, the McCanns invited her over. Supposedly in the media, it was just a casual thing. You could see Catriona trotting along with the children and the parents. But we discovered there was a secret get-together. And I often think that she was invited for that reason. Several of them got together in the Rothley, whatever. And imagine if she was there and Kate would say, oh, yeah, remember after high tea? Remember I came in my jogging outfit and Jerry was playing tennis? And it's kind of an intimidation thing. Or memory, maybe she couldn't remember, but Kate was reminding her. And one thing that's coming to mind, on the 3rd of May, there was all questions as to who was where, but the Paynes hadn't arrived at dinner. I'm sorry if I'm going off a bit here, but I wanted to remember this bit. The Paynes hadn't arrived straight away, so Matthew Oldfield decided he was going to go up and chivvy the Canes and get them to come down again, for dinner. Now, in their statements, David Payne saw him coming at the swimming pool. Fiona saw them at the gate. Oldfield saw them at the corner of the road, I believe it was. And Diane Webster said, absolutely not. We did not see him. So, I mean, these are the discrepancies that I'm talking about. If they were all walking together down, they would have all seen I was going to say Mike Oldfield. Tubular bells, yeah. They would have seen him all at the same time, but they didn't. And Diane Webster claims absolutely, categorically was the word that's used in the files. Now, when it came to the derogatory statements, Diane was asked again, and she said, well, David and Fiona reminded me that I saw them. Yeah. I mean, that's an example of one of the discrepancies I've got. I think I worked out as about 50 different discrepancies similar to that. Not memory, it was Monday or Tuesday or whatever. So anyway, that's where I am with the Crèche. It was a light bulb moment. I didn't look for it. It just happened as I'm writing. And I realized what it could be. Excuse me a moment. So anyway, we've got I hope I've covered enough for those that are not fully aware of why I believe something happened to her earlier, why I believe there are reasons and how they got through the Crèche deceit. These are all important things. Now, what you have to remember, I'm telling you all this. Now, I did a lot of research on all of this, so I absolutely believe. And in 17 years, I've never had one contradiction. I think there was one small one regarding Mrs. Fenn, but apart from that, nobody has ever been able to contradict any of my thoughts. Now, that tells me something, especially when there's a lot of pros around. But no, I'm not saying that I'm exact in everything. We also have to remember that the files only tell us a small amount. I have guessed, although a vast majority of files were released, the police have held back so much information. And what I've discovered, which I'll go into detail a little bit more later, maybe, but is that whenever I come up with a thought, the police have already got it. I absolutely believe that anything that I come up with has already been filed and with the police. I believe they know everything, just not enough to convict. But yeah, the some of the questions and the Crèche, you know, where were the children? I mean, there's so many discrepancies with the Crèche records. And in fact, Cherry was just asking me this morning that what happened to the twins' Crèche report, Crèche register for May the 3rd. And the police had redacted it, blackened it. It was not available. They also did not release the diagram of events for that morning. And that is the police timeline, but it was all in Portuguese, so it's not easily available unless you read Portuguese. I tried to, you know, mind you, do you know, I just love, and I'm so proud of myself, because a lot of the videos that we were put out were from the Portuguese press or Gonçalo. And although we could get translations, Joanna didn't have time, Joanna Murray, didn't have time to be adding them to videos. So I offered to do it. Now, I don't know one word. Well, I know one word now of Portuguese, but by some miracle, I was able to put together, I did quite a few videos. I'll never forget the one that was an hour long. But what I did, I'd take the phrasing, and when I could get a word that seemed similar, like if it said Madeline, and I'd look for where Madeline and put that in a placement and go through. But the only one word that I did recognize, I think it was Janella, which is window. And I mentioned to a friend of Gonçalo, can you tell him whenever he's doing an interview, can he please mention about the window so that I can put my placement in the right place? It really helped. But anyway, yeah, it took a long time. I mean, the 10-year video, 10-year anniversary, he did a video of and close to an hour. And that was humongous to put together, especially because we were busy at that time. And that's why I have to thank Cherry and Carrie and Linda and Helen for kind of taking over from me when I was doing videos or doing translations. They absolutely stepped up to the plate and really looked after Heidi Ho controversy for me. So they're great. And Cherry is still working there alone with Carrie helping her. Yeah, it's a great, if ever you need any reference, if you have a search word, if you have a keyword that you want to find information on, then please just go to Heidi Ho Controversy Facebook. It's open to the public, and just put in a search keyword and it'll bring up any of the threads that we've done. And in all those threads, I've added hundreds and hundreds of graphics and videos. So when you have a search word, a search topic, it'll bring up so many, and you'll get videos and graphics that will explain everything to you. But if you don't want to do that, just open a thread or with the topic that you want to find out about, and ask Cherry or message Cherry. She is absolutely great. And I will say one thing, Cherry to this day does not allow any videos where anybody makes money. I, for one, have never made a penny from the case. And part of the reason, apart from I wouldn't want to make money from a missing child or presumed dead, but the files, there are thousands and thousands of files which were all translated over the course of 4 years by volunteers of the Maddie case files. Inez, Sophia, Kaslux, and Joanna, along with a lot of members. They put their heart and soul into trying to get all those files translated for us. And how dare any of us make money from their hard work? So it's a, if anybody questions why we don't like somebody making money, it's because of that. Now, we're going 16 years later, and I totally understand that a lot of people are kind of working with all the other stuff. But basically, that's why we have never made money. And it was an unwritten rule in the Maddie community up until a few years ago. And Cherry still stands by it. She'll sometimes get hold of me or Carrie and say, should we allow this video because they're making money from this, And I'm really proud of that. Cherry does a wonderful job, and so does Carrie. But anyway, so now I think we've got to the point where I'm going to head in the direction. Now, I did a video live about a month or two ago about the timeline of where her body was moved and the locations. Now, there's a couple of things I need to say here. Is, as I mentioned earlier, it was something I'd never done any research on before. Only what I'd come across during the course of doing the regular timelines of the holiday. But I do have a calendar which every month, every week, every day from April the 28th right through to September, just past September the 9th when they were made Arguidos, every single day I put in all the information for that day. So I have the phone pings for that day. I have the blog, the diary, the news, some of the news articles, the clothes they were wearing, everything I could. Obviously, it was never fully complete, but I did the best I could. So if there's any one day that you want to check on, just I've got the calendar. Either contact me or Cherry, and we'll find you all the information I have for that day. And the phone pings are particularly important because that tells us where the McCanns were. Does it agree or disagree to what they tell us? Now, just recently, the Bernd Stellander book, I've been asking because I'd really like and hope that his theories coincide with mine, because there's a big gap. I didn't do a lot of research once the holiday was over, once we were part of that. There was not a lot of in-depth research for the days following or the weeks following. So I'm hoping that if his dates match or coincide with what I've come up with, basically from June the 8th onwards. And the reason I say June the 8th is that we always discussed in the forums about the triangle. We called it the triangle. It was the southwestern portion of Portugal, around from Praia de Luz down to Sagres and Budens and Vila de Bispo and a few other areas that were really, there was a lot of pings to that area. And we knew there was something going on, and it was highly researched, particularly from members of the Maddie case files. They did a huge amount of work on that, and a wonderful job, I'm sure. But at the time, I couldn't specifically focus on that. I was still working on the other research that I was doing. Now, I've gone into taking the information that tells us there was something happened around that time and putting it into a timeline. I don't believe, and I can't be sure, that anybody's done the actual timeline. I knew about the triangle. I knew about Huelva. I knew about the dogs. But then when I looked at some of the information, I thought, well, hang on, this looks like this, and this is what happened in the end. And I'm just about to cough, so can you just hang on one second? So when I looked, I think one of the main things, and you can see on the thumbnail for this video, that there was an issue regarding a disused barn. And in this disused barn, it is very credible, according to this particular article, that there was a towel. Okay, I'm going to stop right there because I made an error. I believed the disused barn was in Sagres, and I've marked it on the thumbnail, and I should take it off. It was actually in Ario, which is about 10 miles, I think, north of Praia de Luz. And there is a picture, and I do have the picture, but I didn't include it in here because I didn't want to be distracted by putting up pictures. And that's why I can't read comments, because I have to really focus on what I'm saying, and you can tell that sometimes I get a bit distracted and go off. But I did discover this morning that I'd made an error, and that Ario, I think is the name, is where they found the towel. It was an Aztec type towel, and it was taken by the Dutch photographer who labeled it Maddie's towel. And they also suggest that the police were there, checked it out, and there was indications that it could have been Madeleine's DNA on the towel, but also indications that there were also fibers on this towel which look and appear to have come from the Renault Scenic, the McCann's hire car. So this is where I should state that the timeline from June until when I get to the portion with Huelva needs absolute research. I have not, as I explained to you, I have not got into having the ability to be able to. So there will be discrepancies in some things, and I absolutely do appreciate if someone wants to correct me on something. I think I'd mentioned this in the last video, and I did ask for somebody to correct me. I wish somebody had come to me then and said, listen, this towel was not found in Sagres. It was found in Ario, which was 10 kilometers away. But I'm not looking to be right. I'm looking to find the truth. And so that is important to me. So I spent this morning, 5 o'clock this morning, I'm going through some of this stuff just to get an idea. And that's when I discovered it was not in Sagres. But that doesn't detract from the basic timeline that I'm putting in place. That was just something that I think is important that we look at. There were several things that happened around that time. There is definitely something that's really very curious. July 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, and even through past that for the next few days, there was a lot going on. And I believe somehow it's all intertwined, and it's, it's got something to do with it. It's very, very complicated because, and this is why the research is going to be really hard, because in July 8th, I'll give you some of the reasons it's questionable. In July, I think it was about June the 8th, Jerry and Kate were in Amsterdam, and there was an issue about Dat Telegraph, the Dutch paper that issued a suggestion or put out a letter that had suggested that Maddie can be found in such and such, which I think was this area place. Now, it's really questionable because Jerry claims that it didn't arrive. The letter he didn't get the thing till later. There's a lot surrounding that, the issue. And the reason apparently that the police actually did follow up on it was because a year before they'd received another letter similar from, I believe, the same person or same whatever. And they did find a couple of girls. So they knew it was important to check on this. Jerry really made a big deal about something. And because I haven't fully done the research, I could probably read it to you from a thing, but I'm just doing this from what I remember. I never did. I always wanted to check on what they were doing. I did see where the police actually went to this scrubland and were searching. We do have a video of that, but apparently at one point it tells you there was nothing. At another, it tells you the picture with this towel that they did find by a disused barn, that this towel had possibly Maddie's DNA and fibers from the scenic. So was that. Now, the other thing is, I believe that on July 9th is when there was an issue in Sagres. Is it possible that Jerry found out about the police were going to go and search this other area, and they took Maddie's body from that area and moved it over to Sagres? If you look at the dates and the details, that's very possible that they got scared and moved her to Sagres. Now, for now, I'm going to focus on the Sagres portion. And this is interesting in several ways, is that there was a phone call made from 28 kilometers away from Praia de Luz on July the 9th, I believe. And it states in the news article and the police that it was a call from, I believe, Jerry to Russell O'Brien in Praia de Luz. It was a 12-minute phone call. And he denied that he was in Sagres. He said it was from 4 kilometers away. So obviously an issue. Now, thanks to Ben Salmon, rest in peace, Ben. I was reading this morning. He had a blog, a wonderful. He was a great researcher. Anything you want to know about the phone records, he's got them. And I was reading his blog on this and seeing that, and he had written, everybody believed it was Russell O'Brien, but the actual phone call was to David Payne. Now, was it that it was David Payne that spoke to him, or was Russell O'Brien using David Payne's telephone? Who knows? Russell O'Brien is questionable. One thing I've known from pretty much day one, well, not day one, but after the files, is that on the Monday following Maddie's disappearance, Russell O'Brien went up to Algesur, if that's the way it's said. How did he get there? They didn't have a car. And why was he there? And I saw a map on Ben's blog that does kind of help explain what may have happened. This is the thing with researchers, we all have our focus on specific stuff. I know a lot about the timelines, but I don't know. I can't remember names of who was involved. I know all the basics of everything from the early days, but I really focused on timelines. And that's why I'm still here today doing what I do. So yes, Russell O'Brien has questionable, and I'm just going to add that there was a lot of newspaper reports in August that they were planning on arresting Russell O'Brien. And in fact, the newspapers quoted, the Portuguese newspapers quoted that the police were bringing in a lot of the people that were off on holiday, even expecting some big occasion. And I do know that Russell O'Brien was denying, nothing came of it. I've searched the files, nothing came of it. So again, it's a newspaper report, but I do believe that the content was very real. So Russell O'Brien may have answered that call, or it may have been David Payne. But the point is that it's from that day right through to the end of July, looking at the phone pings, and this is within the triangle questionable time and area, looking at the phone pings, the McCanns went to visit several times, and usually on an evening, for an hour, just for an hour. It was very odd, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. And then in July, the end of July, Kate was on her own. Jerry had gone to Washington on July the 23rd, and Kate was on her own. And she was very sad. And she was upset, and she phoned Ricardo Paiva, the liaison officer that they were given, and suggested to him that she'd seen in her dream Maddie lying on a hill. At this point, it was taken that she believed that Maddie it was her confirming to them in a way that Maddie had died. And can you just hang on one sec here? And so what they did, they brought in Mark Harrison with the dogs, Martin Grimes' dogs, cadaver and blood dogs. That's what they decided to bring them in a week or so later. But Jerry, having heard this, that Kate had told them this dream, came back from Washington on the 26th, and he overshot Pride Illusion, went straight over to Villa de Bispo, or it's very possible that the phone pings came from Sagres, not like, you have to realize that phone pings are very approximate if they pass through or whatever. So that was odd. He'd come home from Washington and he didn't come straight back to Kate. And I think he spent 2 hours there and came back. I can't, don't quote me on that. So there was some question. And then on the 27th, now I sometimes second guess myself and think, was it the 28th? But I think it was the 27th. They went there and for 2 hours. And that was the very last time they went to Sagres. At that point, the way they'd been visiting. I mean, doesn't that tell you that they had something they were going backwards and forwards to? And then all of a sudden, the dogs are coming in, okay, and it stops. So this is when the timeline kind of hit me, the very possibility that they moved her body on the 28th. I've said this for many years, but I never really put it into a timeline. Now, that was on July the 28th. Now, it's very possible, I can't remember the reason, but I believe Jerry was in prior deluge or something. But I thought, you know, it's very possible that somebody else was driving the car. Jerry went back to his apartment, but the car went over and drove to Huelva in Spain. And well, I don't know how to put it, just took Maddie there without knowing, of course, where. So on August the 1st, we had the parents went home. Oh, no. We had Sandy Cameron, the brother-in-law, and Trisha, Jerry's sister. They went home. And John Corner, his friend, or their friend, and his parents came out on August the 1st. Now, the dogs had already been brought in at this point. And everything with the dogs, and maybe a lot don't realize that everything, every single day with the dogs was recorded on video. We've only ever seen an hour and a half. And we've got the hour and a half of in 5A, their apartment, and also in the car park where they went through the cars and the clothes. But the fact is, every single day for many hours, they recorded those dogs. And on the 31st, I think is when they started in 5A. I went through, I can't remember exactly which day, but on the 2nd of August, the day after John Corner arrived, they were planning on going to Huelva to distribute leaflets. But that was the day that the police arrived in the evening with the dogs. And you can see the video with the dogs while they're in that villa. And Jerry feigned an intestinal problem that he couldn't go to Huelva that day. So they went the next day. But this is where we get into another issue that has some major discrepancies. And this is why I say that everything I find out, I find that the police have already been there and done that. And of course, we know individually, yeah, the police were there in Huelva, but was it why? Like, oh, they believed that they took Maddie to Huelva. But what happened, there was a lot of journalists that were following them. There was a woman who supposedly saw them at a traffic stop. But there was also, and this is where I think the police have a lot more information than we know. Apparently, they were seen, the car was CCTV in areas they should never have been, and they were missing for a 2-hour period that's never been accounted for. I'm not sure whether that 2-hour period, I don't think it was before, I think it was after. But anyway, it was 2-hour period that the car was, that they were missing, and the car was actually seen in several areas that they weren't really supposed to have been, according to their claims. But what it was, again, something else I read this morning, it was the Spanish police who gave the Portuguese police the information. That makes me wonder, from what I've read, Spanish pings, Portuguese police don't have jurisdiction over Spanish, anything in Spain. But then I wondered if they gave them footage of the McCann car out of the way, did they also give them the phone pings? I mean, there's been so much held back in the files, and I really believe that probably is the case. If they gave them that, why wouldn't they give them the phone pings as well, which was important? And so so the police were right on it. Now, Jerry and Kate, I think there was an hour that they left at 9 and they got to Huelva at 12. I've forgotten, 50 kilometers, 50 miles, I'm not sure. But a journalist in one paper has stated that all of a sudden Jerry and Kate disappeared. Nobody knew where they went. They just vanished into thin air and returned again 2 hours later. Nobody followed them. How they got away with that, I don't know. Very suspicious. And so ultimately you have to wonder, the police believed that they disposed of the body there. Now, I want to thank Janine Bresnik, because I just read a post from her this morning saying that she believes that she may have been taken to Vamora marina and taken over via the waterways that go right into Huelva. There is was a government crematorium there. Whether that, or whether in some way maybe she was cremated and a diplomat's bag and off back to England. So thanks, Janine, for that. I wanted to tell you I was going to use that. It's a good thought. I think there's so many of us researchers that, because Janine's been with us since day one, there were so many researchers that I had my research, Ben had his research, and if only there was a way we could connect and fit it all together. Sadly, Ben passed away. I think many of us just absolutely miss him. He was absolutely a wonderful bloke, and but he does have his blog, and although I couldn't get into it today except for that one, A House on Black Rock, I think was the title, his mum would, I know he did give me his password, maybe I can find it, or his mum may help if we need to get into his blog, or maybe I just missed it. So he put a lot of research. He even went over to Praia de Luz and went to visit the PJ and took them his information. He was, he was a real proactive. He phoned everybody. He didn't care, because the ultimate thing is he wanted justice for Maddie. And I think that's what all of us want. All I want, I say it almost every time. I do not care about the McCanns. I'm not after the McCanns. I don't give two hoots about what they do. I think they've probably suffered. But what I do want is to locate Maddie in what, whether she's been cremated, whether buried or whatever, and have her buried with the dignity that she deserves. And so the world can grieve, the extended family can grieve, the world can grieve, we can grieve. And as I say, it's what Maddie deserves. That's what I want. I don't give two hoots about the McCanns. They're probably suffering more than whatever. And there's so much more to this case, so much more. It's an amazing case. For anybody who doesn't know which case to look at, but they want to really get involved, this will take forever. 17 years and I'm still researching. And I'll never regret anything that I've done. What I've given up to do it. As I say, I've never made a penny from it. Every hour, and I've got forums with thousands of my research posts and tables and timetables and everything. And I've never made a penny, and I'm proud of that. And it's important to me, because Maddie is, and everybody knows, Maddie is my passion. To find out where she is and to have her give her the burial she deserves. That's really all I want. That's all I want. Now, there is one little factor that I did forget here. Well, probably lots. But regarding Sagres, excuse me a moment. Was I found a connection with a light bulb moment when I was doing a live a short while ago, is that once going back to the holiday, they arrived on the Saturday afternoon. Now, we knew at the time, I knew Duarte Levy, who was he was a journalist. He actually helped give us the dogs video and also the derogatory statements. They were not in the files, but he'd often mentioned about them going to Sagres on the Monday, but I never saw anything that was fact and really didn't follow up too much on it. But then when I was doing a recent live, I don't know, I haven't done too many lately, but 6 months ago, whatever, I was reading through my research notes, and I see that they went to Sagres on the Monday. And I thought, hang on, this is weird. You arrive in a holiday town with all your friends, 9 of you together on the Saturday evening. You spend Sunday together, but then you go off to another remote village, whatever, at the southwest tip of Portugal on the Monday. Doesn't sound credible. Not only that, the Crèche records are very not credible. Now, if you take into consideration the Crèche description, the Crèche deceit that I've explained, that it could have been that they sent in Russell's daughter. They weren't going to send her, apparently, to the Crèche. So here's another oddity. But if she went into the Crèche, then that might explain why on the Monday it shows that they dropped Maddie off at 3:15 and picked her up again at 3:30. And when I looked into it, it was a strong possibility that that day there was swimming. And when I looked on the activity sheet, or it could have been, nothing's ever a given. But is it possible that it was Russell's daughter that went in, claimed as Maddie, but when they got there, it was swimming. Now, she had initially, at the beginning of the holiday, she had an issue with her foot and she couldn't go swimming. So maybe it could be a reason why, if it was Russell's daughter that was mistaken for Maddie, she couldn't go swimming, so they had to pick her up or book her out 15 minutes later. That's one thought, one theory. But when I looked and saw that Jerry had visited Sagres, whether he was with Kate, I think he was. Where were the twins? It said that Jerry was wheeling a buggy, but there was no twins about. But As I say, I haven't done a whole lot of research on this. I've tried to find out, but it's very difficult because we've got so many areas to research. We've got phone pings, we have other researchers, we have the blogs, the whole lot of areas to research. But when I thought, hang on, this seems odd that they're going to Sagres, like just a day. They had one day in Praia de Luz and then off to Sagres. And then it clicked on me, hang on. If something had happened to Maddie, if Sagres was one of the places that they actually took her to in June, if something happened to Maddie, would they maybe have gone there for some reason? There was a reason. Now, I did read in one article, and I haven't been able to find it since, and whether it was true or not, I honestly don't know. But it did say they discussed about a disused barn. Jerry was looking for a disused barn or something. Whether true or not, I mean, I don't know. But if that was the case, that would mean that something had happened to Maddie on the Sunday and not the Monday. I believe something between lunchtime Sunday and Tuesday morning when the discrepancies started. But this isn't out of the question that, and others also believe something happened Sunday, but for different reasons to me, but that this is the whole thing, is that it's just so odd. And there maybe was a reason. And any minute now, we have a big truck dumping dirt and it's going to be noisy. Maybe. We'll see. So that is basically, I think I've covered most of what I wanted to cover. I absolutely encourage you to ask, whether it be Cherry or message me or also don't forget what really happened to Madeleine McCann, the Facebook group. It's a private group, and if you're good, you'll be let in. So they're very busy. So it's a great forum, and they have great admin. Same as I do in HDH. So and don't forget Jill Haven's Complete Mystery of Madeleine McCann. It's a great forum, and it's one of the original forums, and you'll find everything you need to find. And well, I started going through a thread about it was about Sagres, and there was there's about 20 posts to a page, and there was 7 pages, and I got through 3. I couldn't manage anymore, and that tells you how much information is in there. And I'm hoping he's going to dump it in the right place. There's a great big hill that they're dumping on, and then they're dumping it in the wrong place, and it's going over to my area. If I go running out and give him what for? Anyway, sorry about that. So I think I've pretty much completed the very basics. There is a huge amount of information in between those times. Huge. 17, just me alone, I've got 17 years of information between those dates. But I think, and I hope, that I've given some people who weren't fully aware of the full holiday, or the possibility that something happened to her earlier, or the possibility about the Crèche deceit, or the possibility of where they may have moved her body. And I hope that I've covered the majority of that, because I really did want to keep it very basic. And I think I wanted to try and keep it within the hour. And I think it's an hour and 25 minutes. So I apologize about that. The other thing I want to apologize, really, I feel so bad because I used to do a live every Saturday around 3:30 with Shirley. Shirley couldn't be here today, but because I wasn't going to focus on because I wasn't going to focus on reading the comments or on putting the graphics up, I'm okay with Shirley. She's having a fun time, and good for her. So I actually didn't want to plan too much after this, but maybe if I put the comments on, I haven't seen one comment since I started. I do apologize about that. If I find where it is for the comments, there's comments. Okay. So if there are, see, what did I tell you? If there are any comments that you really want to ask me, would you be able to ask me right now? I will try and read the comments and answer it. But what I think I planned is to have another live in a week, or who knows, maybe a few days, where it's a Q&A, because I think at this point we've covered such an area. I can't focus on any one. We need to cover what people want. So if there's anybody who wants some information on something, then a Q&A may help cover that. Now, whether Shirley's back by then, I mean, I miss Shirley. She has always been with me and she's so great. But she is having fun, so that's good. We're happy for her. And Carrie does a great job of doing the modding and coming up with links. She's the fastest link lady you'll get. Anytime you mention a link, Carrie is right there. She's got the link for you. But if there is anything that you want to ask me now, and let's have another day where I can just answer or try and answer your questions. And let's see how we go. And if I've bored you to death, then don't worry about it. Sorry. So hopefully not. I hope I've been able to give you some helpful information. There's a whole lot more. I mean, like I say, there's 17 years of it. But let's see. Let's have a look and see if I... Okay, I can see Donna Kenny. She's asking, how did they get to Sagres on the Monday? Did they have a car? Well, this is a questionable thing. They apparently did not have a car. Did somebody take them? Who knows? They, in fact, the reason I was in touch with with Operation Grange was because I was on an expat group. And one of my friends in there, he lived in Faro, I think. And he had nothing to do with the Maddie case whatsoever. And he came to me one day and he said, he said, my wife was an artist's, local artist. He gave me the name of her. And she overheard somebody telling them that they'd loaned the car telling her that they loaned their car to the McCanns. Total hearsay. So, but supposing that's true. And if they had loaned the car, was it before Maddie disappeared or was it after? That we didn't know. But anyway, the Operation Grange were very, very good. They asked me for the details. I showed them the screenshots of our conversation, and they followed through and entered it. They confirmed that they entered it into the PJ computer. I've forgotten the name that they call that computer. But it got me in touch with them. And I spent several times, they wanted to see some of my videos. So they wanted some links. And I spoke to a few of the detectives there, and they were so good, but they assured me, and this is something which I find important, a lot of people, I always have, what's the word? I have faith in Operation Grange. I know a lot of people think I'm stupid, but I do. And part of the reason is my initial interaction with Operation Grange detectives, and I spoke to, I think, about three or four, but one in particular. And he even contacted me when he needed some information. So he was really nice. They were all real nice. But I was straightforward with them, and I said, everybody's saying it's a whitewash. And he assured me, he's, absolutely not. Don't worry, we do this. I said, well, for example, what Jerry claimed, I do have the recording of this. Jerry claimed that he came in through the front door that night, and yet afterwards on the Channel 4 documentary, he claimed he come in through the patio doors because he didn't want to wake them. I said, so it's in his early statement and his second statement, he made two different quotes. So what was true? One of them was a lie. And his words to me was, that's now, I can't remember was it squad or what, but that he came back and he said, that's why everything is entered just the same as every other criminal case. That when I asked him that, he said, that is why it's a murder squad investigating. So he admitted at that point, and there is actually a video, I think the one where the McCann's female lawyer, can't remember her name quickly, and the chap that was went in to see her, said that there is a murder squad. I think there was 37 detectives at that point. He mentioned murder. So I've always had the belief. I know that everybody else, including Gonzalo Amaral, probably don't believe it. But my thoughts on why they keep getting money is because there's certain aspects of the case that the Portuguese police cannot investigate. They cannot investigate the fund. There's lots of other things that they can't investigate. So Operation Grange would, of course, well, I say of course, I believe, are doing that kind of stuff. And the Portuguese police have not got to the point that they've got the smoking gun that they can actually convict, although I believe they know everything that I've mentioned. I think they know it all. I think they know every scenario. There's nothing that we can. I think they've got all the DNA. I absolutely believe that Mark Perlin, who Mark Saunokonoko had been in touch with, and Mark Saunokonoko's podcast is probably the absolute best thing you can listen to. I think there's about 10, 11 podcasts. He is the best investigative journalist on the Maddie case that you will find. Myself and Cherry and Carrie and Linda helped him for 2 years to get this podcast together. And it was number one in UK and Australia. And the only reason it didn't make US is because Dr. Phil had started doing podcasts. So Mark was really proud that they'd made it to number one, I think, for a couple of weeks running. I'm not sure. And he gave us credit at the end, which was lovely of him. Lovely man, but really good investigator. So I really recommend you look up Cherry, or anybody will give you the link to Mark's. He's the producer at 9 News in Australia. He even on, I think, was it the last episode, even Gonzalo Amaral had enough faith in him that he did an interview with him in the last episode, I think it was. Just amazing. And I don't know if I answered the oh, about the car. Yeah, I don't know. We don't know. Apparently, Russell and Jane had friends that were there. Maybe they had a car. We really don't know a lot of that stuff. And how Russell O'Brien got up to Al Jazeera on the Monday, we don't know. And there was discrepancies. I mean, it's just a whole lot of weirdness. Adele McGavin, Ben Salmon did a forum. He was a very humble chap. He was an incredible. He took all the phone records and put names to them, and if he didn't know, he'd phone them up. I mean, he was just so straightforward, because it was all in a good cause. And he put so much together. He worked alongside Isabel on that. Isabel McFadden, she is another great person that actually is from Portugal, even though she's out in California. So she knows a lot of people and can speak Portuguese. I mean, anyway, he worked with Isabel on that and came up with some great theories. It's just too enormous to take it all in. I wish I knew more than I do. So Adele, if you contact Cherry, unless Carrie's here with the link, I don't think she would have it because it's, I think it's been put to private. I can see if I can find out from his mother. It's he did great work. Mark Sal Noko. Now, I always laugh at Shirley because we often refer to him. She has tried. She can never come up with his name, but it's Mark Saunokono, something similar to that. You can see him on Twitter. He's on Twitter, and he's just and to listen to his voice, everybody agreed he's the voice that you can just listen to. I do have a live, which I focused on 9 Live on Mark and his podcasts. So one thing to keep in mind, and I'm not sure that everybody realizes, when you go to somebody's channel, you can choose videos or you can choose live, because I tend to just go for videos and I don't find the lives because I'm not thinking. So make sure, if I've done a live or you want to see the other lives that I've done, always click on lives. On videos, you will get my library of videos that I did from 2011. And I'm so proud that I think we're up to more than 15 million views. And I'm actually really surprised that the video I did a month or 2 ago about moving Maddie's body, is now up to 17,000 views, 17,297 or something. That is incredible. And that's why I think it's important that I get all this information out there. Whether anybody wants to believe it or not, that's up to you. But if you don't ever listen to me and say, oh yeah, well, Lizzie said this, so I believe it. No, please, always check your research, double check. I mean, I believe everything, and but it's important that you don't, you question. You can always question me. A cherry will always, in Heidi Ho Controversy Facebook group, which is public, if you have a question, just ask in there, and Cherry will make sure that she contacts me to get the answer if it's something you really want to know. So please do that. Okay. Oh, yeah. Jeanette, they may not pay in the lifetime, but they will pay for this, maybe through their children or grandchildren or through giving up their souls. I think they've paid. I think they're constantly paying. I mean, can you imagine having this, not realizing back in 2007, this was prior to Facebook. I mean, we did have social media in forums, but they probably had no idea what they were going to be faced with, the scrutiny. No idea whatsoever. And I think it's got out of hand. I do believe that there's possibly a super injunction in place, from what Diane Webster had mentioned about when she was told that she couldn't say much because of a super inaudible. So that's why we really don't hear from the rest of the Tapa 7 and others. I mean, it might be in place for news, who knows? Because the super injunction, which Carteret are famous for, means that you can't even mention there's a super injunction. So you would never know if there was a super injunction. Yeah, I don't know. So I want to thank everybody for being here, unless there's something you specifically want to ask me before I disappear. But I do want to thank you. I do apologize to my subs that I used to appear every Saturday and I haven't been able to do it. But now I've got new equipment. I'm not promising every Saturday, but I'm going to start doing more because, like I say, the last live I did with moving the body, about 50 minutes in, my computer just shut down and I can't have that. So now I've got a new one, thanks to my wonderful daughter. So I guess I'm going to leave you now. I want to thank everybody who's been here. I'm so sorry I haven't been reading the comments. I don't know. With respect, mostly I can see as a mod. I don't know if there are any others, but I do hope that everybody was behaving themselves. Otherwise, she would have given you a bit of aggro. Oh, Shirley was here. Shirley's not supposed to be here. She's having a happy time. So, okay, I'm going to say bye-bye for now. I hope you learnt a little bit, but most importantly, never blindly believe. Never just blindly believe what you're told, especially in this case. And that's why I say, even with me, don't just believe because somebody said so. You never know. So, and I want you to, I trust myself. And I absolutely believe, and everything I try and do is based on fact and everything. But you know what I'm saying? It's so easy to just blindly believe somebody. So please make sure that you look for the real knowledge. So I think I've gone 3/4 of an hour over time. It's time that you've got a break. And I am going to be on again very shortly. I don't know when, but I'm going to do a question and answer, a Q&A, because I think there's so many of you that have specific questions that may not be included in this timeline. And also keep in mind that everything, all the graphics, all the pictures, all the videos about this timeline are within my other videos. This is just a very basic summary of the timeline. Hence, I didn't put any graphics or videos or anything up. And so, and I didn't even look to see if I had an outro. Let me see, have we got... Okay, you know what I'm going to do? There was something within this case. We've lost a lot of people, but there was one in particular who was approached by Martin Brunt and accused, and she couldn't take it, and 2 days later she passed away. Let's remember Brenda Leyland, and I'll say good night to everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for not being here. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the day, or a good day tomorrow. So night everyone, and thank you so much. And I'll leave with giving a memory to Brenda Leyland.
May it be an evening star shines down upon you. May it be when darkness falls, your heart will be true. You walk alone. How far you are from home. Morning air, May it be the shadows call.